Hey guys, we know you love these long 20-story videos and we love the feedback we get. However, it takes a while for our small team to make them. That's why we've moved over to a new channel, Wideawakehorror Extended, just for our long stories with a bigger team, and we will be uploading the longer stories from that channel from now on. So guys, please head over to our new channel and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any new videos. The channel link will be in the video description and in the comments. Let's try and hit 1,000 subs on our new channel. I know you legends can get us there. And when we upload, comment that you're from the original Wide Awake Horror channel so we can appreciate you as one of the OG members. Thank you so much for being part of the Wide Awake Horror family. We hope to see you on our new channel. We love you guys.
So I've matched with this girl, Samantha. Her profile looks normal enough. Cute pics, likes hiking and true crime podcasts. Works in marketing. We chat for a bit, and she seems pretty cool. So we decide to meet up for dinner the next night at this trendy new place downtown. I get to the restaurant a few minutes early, scope out a table, and wait. Samantha shows up right on time, looking even better than her photos. I'm thinking, score. Maybe this won't be so bad after all. Man, was I in for a rude awakening. Things start off okay. We're chatting, looking over the menu. Everything seems chill. Then the waiter comes over to take our drink orders, and it's like a switch flips in Samantha's brain. She has this weird look on her face and snaps at the poor guy, demanding a specific type of water I've never even heard of. The waiter politely explains they don't carry that brand, and Samantha loses it. She starts ranting about how incompetent the staff is and how she can't believe they don't have her precious water. I'm sitting there in shock, trying to calm her down and apologize to the waiter. Eventually, she settles for regular water, but she's glaring daggers at the poor dude the whole time. I try to steer the conversation back to normal topics, hoping it was just a weird moment. For a while, it seems to work. We're talking about our jobs, our hobbies, all that first date small talk stuff. But every time the waiter comes by, Samantha's mood instantly sours. She complains about everything. The bread is too hard. The salad isn't fresh enough. The pasta is overcooked. With each complaint, she gets louder and ruder. I'm cringing so hard I think my face might actually stick that way. At one point, she actually snaps her fingers at the waiter to get his attention. I'm mortified. I try to tell her that's not cool, but she just brushes me off, saying the staff should be more attentive. I'm starting to wonder if I'm on a hidden camera show or something. Things really go off the rails when the waiter comes to clear our plates. He accidentally bumps Samantha's purse, which was hanging off her chair. It falls and some of her stuff spills out. The waiter immediately apologizes and bends down to help pick everything up. Now, what happens next is so wild I almost can't believe it happened. As the waiter is crouched down, Samantha reaches over and yanks down his trousers. Like full-on pants the guy in the middle of a packed restaurant. There's this moment of complete silence as everyone processes what just happened. The waiter is frozen, face bead red. Other diners are staring in shock. I'm sitting there wondering if I've somehow slipped into an alternate reality where this is normal behavior. Samantha, meanwhile, is cackling like a hyena. She's pointing at the waiter's boxers, which had little pizza slices on them, by the way, and making these obnoxious comments. I snap out of my daze and start apologizing to the waiter, who's trying to pull his pants up with as much dignity as he can muster. The manager rushes over and I can see security heading our way too. Samantha is still laughing, showing zero remorse. I'm beyond mortified at this point. I pull out my wallet and give the waiter all the cash I have, telling him how sorry I am and that he didn't deserve any of this. Security escorts us out, and I'm fully expecting to be banned for life. Samantha is acting like this is all some big joke, saying they can't take a little harmless fun. I'm too stunned to even respond. We get outside, and I immediately call a ride, wanting nothing more than to teleport home and pretend this never happened. While we're waiting, Samantha had the audacity to suggest we go somewhere else for drinks. I tell her in no uncertain terms that the date is over and she needs to lose my number. She flips out, calling me a bunch of names and saying I can't handle a strong woman who knows how to have fun. My ride arrives and I've never been so happy to see a stranger's car. I hop in without even saying goodbye to Samantha, who's still ranting on the sidewalk. The driver can tell something's up and asks if I'm okay. I give him the short version and the dude is so cool, he offers to detour to a drive-thru for some comfort food. I get home and immediately delete the dating app, wondering what the hell just happened. Part of me hopes the restaurant presses charges against Samantha, but I'm too freaked out to follow up. The next day, I wake up to a bunch of missed calls and texts from Samantha. Apparently, she'd gone through my wallet while I was in the bathroom and swiped one of my business cards. She's alternating between apologizing and accusing me of overreacting. I block her number and social media accounts, but I'm paranoid for weeks that she'll show up at my job or something. It's been a few months since that nightmare date, and I still get anxious whenever I see someone who looks like Samantha. I've told a few friends about it, but I always downplay how bad it really was. It's almost too crazy to believe. I've been on some bad dates before, but nothing comes close to the sheer insanity of that night. I guess you never really know someone until you meet them in person. And maybe there's something to be said for background checks before first dates, or at least checking if they have any outstanding warrants. These days, I'm sticking to meeting people through friends or at events. At least then there's a better chance they're not completely unhinged. And if I ever do use a dating app again, you can bet I'll be doing some serious social media stalking first. So yeah, that's my dating horror story. Next time you think your date is going badly, just remember, at least they didn't assault the waiter. Probably.
Just a kind reminder that we will be uploading our longer 2-hour stories from a new channel called Wideawakehorror Extended. So please, if you haven't already, please head over and smash that subscribe button, just like you smashed the button on this channel. We really hope to see you there for the next upload. Enjoy the rest of the stories.
Met this guy Odin on Bumble about 3 weeks ago. His profile seemed pretty normal. 32, works in tech, likes hiking and craft beer. Basic, I know. We hit it off chatting about true crime podcasts and our shared obsession with spicy food. After texting for a while, we decided to meet up at this new cocktail bar downtown called the Velvet Room. I got there around 8 and grabbed a spot at one of those high tables near the bar. The place was pretty packed for a Friday, lots of after-work crowds still hanging around. Odin showed up right on time, looking like his pics, tall with dark hair and one of those carefully messy beards. He was wearing this fancy watch that he kept fidgeting with, which I thought was kinda odd. The first 30 minutes were actually decent. We talked about our jobs, he told some funny stories about his roommate's crazy cat, normal first date stuff. But something fell off about him, like he kept scanning the room and checking his phone every few minutes. I figured maybe he was just nervous. When we finished our first drinks, I had a gin and tonic, he had some IPA. Odin insisted on getting the next round. I offered to go with him to the bar, but he was weirdly adamant about going alone. That should have been my first warning sign, but I just brushed it off. He came back with another beer for himself and this fancy purple cocktail for me that I hadn't ordered. When I asked what it was, he got all excited explaining how the bartender recommended it. I took a small sip and it tasted super strong, but not bad. I excused myself to use the bathroom, and when I came back, I noticed Odin quickly pulling his hand back from my drink. At first, I thought maybe he was just moving it away from the edge of the table or something. But then I saw these weird little crystal-looking things floating in it that definitely weren't there before. My stomach dropped. I've read enough true crime to know what that probably meant. I tried to stay calm while my mind was racing, thinking about how to get out of there safely. Odin kept urging me to drink more, getting weirdly pushy about it. He seemed really agitated that I was just taking tiny sips. I texted my roommate under the table with our code word for emergency, call me now. A minute later, my phone rang and I pretended it was a crisis at work. Odin got super annoyed when I said I had to leave, actually grabbed my wrist when I stood up and tried to insist I finish my drink first. That's when I lost it. I yanked my arm away and shouted that I saw him put something in my drink. The whole bar got quiet. This huge security guard appeared out of nowhere and grabbed Odin before he could run. The bartender came over with the manager and they called the cops while keeping my drink for evidence. The next hour was intense. Cops showed up fast and did a field test on my cocktail. Turned out it had GHB in it. They found more of it in a little baggie in Odin's jacket pocket. Apparently he had a record. He'd been arrested for similar stuff in another state, but the charges got dropped. The worst part was seeing his phone when the cops went through it. He had this whole notes section with details about other women he met online, including what bars they went to and what drinks they ordered. Made me sick thinking about how many times he might have successfully pulled this off before. They took him away in handcuffs while I gave my statement. The bar staff were amazing, comped my drinks, made sure I had a safe ride home, gave me their numbers in case I needed anything for the case. One of the regulars who saw the whole thing even offered to walk me in my car, but I just wanted to get out of there. Got home and just sat in my car shaking for like 20 minutes before I could go inside. Took the longest shower of my life trying to process what happened. My roommate ordered us pizza and we stayed up late watching stupid movies to distract me. The detective called yesterday to update me. They're charging Odin with attempted assault and possession. Said I should be prepared to testify if it goes to trial. Still waiting to hear more details about that whole situation. Been getting tons of messages from friends and family since filing the police report. My mom's freaking out and wants me to move back home. Not happening. And my sister keeps sending me articles about personal safety devices and self-defense classes. I get that they're worried, but it's kind of overwhelming. The detective handling my case, Officer Martinez, called again this morning. She mentioned they're looking into Odin's previous matches from dating apps, trying to find other potential victims. Apparently, they found a hidden camera in his backpack too, which just adds another layer of creepy to the whole thing. What really messes with my head is how normal he seemed online. Like, his Instagram was full of photos with his family, hiking trips with friends, and posts about his volunteer work at an animal shelter. He even had pictures with his nieces and nephews. How do you reconcile that public image with someone who casually carries date rape drugs in their pocket? My roommate Sarah's been amazing through all this. She took today off work just to hang out with me and binge watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We ordered Chinese food, and she'd been making sure I'm not spending too much time doom scrolling through crime statistics online. Think I might have to buy her those concert tickets she's been eyeing as a thank you. So yeah, that's my completely insane dating horror story. Still trying to wrap my head around how differently things could have gone if I hadn't noticed those crystals in my drink. Think I'm gonna take a break from dating for a while and maybe get a therapist. This shit's gonna take some time to process. You know how sometimes you think you've hit the jackpot with someone, and then bang. Life throws you a curveball that knocks you right off your feet. Well, grab a snack and get comfy, because I've got a story that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about dating. It all started last summer when I was swiping through Tinder or some app, more out of my mind during yet another lazy Sunday. That's when I came across Pete's profile. Tall, dark-haired, with a goofy grin that made me pause mid-swipe. His bio was full of nerdy jokes and a quote from The Office, so naturally I was intrigued. We matched, and within a few messages, I could tell this guy was different. He was quick-witted, always ready with a pun or an obscure movie reference. We texted nonstop for a week before deciding to meet up at this quirky little coffee shop downtown. I remember being so nervous before that first date. I changed my outfit like 5 times and nearly bailed at the last minute. But the moment I saw Pete waiting outside the cafe, all my nerves vanished. He was even cuter in person, rocking a vintage Star Wars tee and a pair of hipster glasses. We ended up talking for hours. Pete was in IT, and he had all these fascinating stories about tech mishaps and office shenanigans. He was also super into local history, pointing out random buildings and rattling off facts like a walking Wikipedia. I was totally smitten. After that, we started seeing each other regularly. Pete always seemed to know the coolest spots in town, hidden speakeasies, hole-in-the-wall restaurants with amazing food, you name it. He'd surprise me with tickets to this film screenings or invite me to obscure art exhibitions. It felt like I was seeing a whole new side of the city I've lived in for years. One thing I noticed early on was how Pete was always super careful with his phone. He'd keep it face down and rarely check it when we were together. At the time, I thought it was sweet, like he was really present in the moment. Looking back, I can't believe I was so dumb. About a month into dating, Pete started mentioning his mom a lot. Apparently, she was going through chemo, and he was helping take care of her. It explained why he was always busy on weekends, and why we could never hang out at his place. I felt awful for even thinking about complaining. Here I was dating this amazing guy who was also a devoted son. Talk about hitting the jackpot, right? As time went on, though, things started getting weird. Pete would sometimes disappear for days, barely responding to texts. When he did, it was always short messages like busy with mom, talk later. I tried to be understanding, but it was frustrating. One time I offered to bring some food over to help out, but Pete shut that down real quick, saying his mom was too sick for visitors. There were other red flags I completely missed, like how I could never find Pete on social media. He claimed he was off the grid because of privacy concerns, which I bought hook, line, and sinker. I even bragged to my friends about how refreshing it was to date someone not obsessed with their online presence. Things came to a head about 3 months into our relationship. It was a Friday night, and Pete had canceled our plans last minute, claiming his mom had a bad reaction to her meds. I was bummed but tried to be supportive. My friend Sarah called and convinced me to go out for drinks with her and some coworkers. We ended up at this trendy new bar downtown. I was actually having a good time, almost forgetting about the canceled date. That's when I saw him. Pete was sitting in a booth across the room, his arm around a woman I'd never seen before. They were laughing and looking cozy as hell. My heart dropped in my stomach. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Sarah noticed something was wrong and followed my gaze. Her jaw dropped when I pointed out Pete. Without thinking, I started walking towards their table. That's when I noticed a glint on his left hand, a wedding ring. The woman saw me approaching and smiled, probably thinking I was a waitress or something. Pete turned, and the color drained from his face. He started stuttering, trying to introduce me as a work friend, but I was already in full meltdown mode. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was loud and probably involved a lot of swearing. The woman, his wife, I later found out, looked confused at first and horrified as she pieced things together. The whole bar went quiet, everyone staring at our low drama unfolding. Pete tried to calm me down, reaching for my arm, but I jerked away. His wife started yelling at him, demanding answers. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. I grabbed my purse and bolted out of there, ignoring Pete calling after me. The next few days were a blur. Pete blew up my phone with calls and texts, begging me to hear him out. I blocked his number, but he started emailing me from different accounts. Each message was more desperate than the last, full of excuses and promises to leave his wife. I couldn't resist doing some digging. Turns out Pete Winters isn't such a common name. A quick Google search led me to his wife's Facebook profile. There it was clear as day. Photos of their wedding from 8 years ago, pictures of their 2 young kids, posts about family vacations, all while he was dating me. The guilt was overwhelming. I kept thinking about all those weekends he was taking care of his mom, when he was really with his family. How many times had he left our dates to go home to his wife and kids? The whole thing made me feel dirty. This is the story of how I got catfished so hard. I'm pretty sure my ancestors felt it. Mandy was a solid 10 out of 10. Blonde hair that looked like it belonged in a shampoo commercial, eyes bluer than the Pacific, and a smile that could make a traffic cop tear out his ticket book. Her bio was equally impressive. Witty one-liners about her love for horror flicks and a weird obsession with collecting vintage spoons. I mean, who doesn't love a girl with quirky hobbies, right? We matched, and boom, instant connection. The conversation flowed like that cheap wine I mentioned earlier. We bonded over our mutual hatred for pineapple on pizza and our secret love for cheesy 80s power ballads. Mandy was funny, smart, and seemed genuinely interested in my boring life. We texted nonstop for a week, and I'm not exaggerating when I say I was glued to my phone 24/7. After 7 days of digital bliss, we decided to meet up for coffee. I was so nervous I nearly puked on my shoes while getting ready. I must have changed my outfit about 20 times and doused myself in enough cologne to choke a horse. Looking back, I probably should have spent less time on my appearance and more time on, making sure Mandy was actually real. I got to the coffee shop early, ordered a latte, and waited, and waited, and waited some more. My latte went cold, and my enthusiasm started to wane. Just as I was about to call it quits and slink home in defeat, I got a text from Mandy saying she was running late but on her way. Hope rekindled, I ordered another coffee and tried to calm my jittery nerves. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, someone approached my table. But instead of the blonde bombshell I was expecting, I found myself face to face with a dude who looked like he could be my dad's drinking buddy. Receding hairline, beer gut, the whole 9 yards. For a split second, I thought maybe Mandy had sent her dad to check me out first or something. But nope, this guy opened his mouth and said, "Hi, I'm Mandy." Well, actually, I'm Fred. I swear, in that moment, I could hear the sound of my jaw hitting the floor. This couldn't be happening, right? This had to be some kind of sick joke. But as Fred nervously shuffled his feet and avoided eye contact, the horrifying truth sank in. I'd been catfished. Hard. Now any sane person would have bolted right then and there. But me. I was too shocked to move. Plus, A tiny part of me was mortally curious about how deep this rabbit hole went. So, against every instinct screaming at me to run, I gestured for Fred to sit down. What followed was the most awkward, cringe-worthy conversation of my life. Fred launched into this long-winded explanation about how he was lonely and just wanted to connect with someone. He claimed he never meant for it to go this far, but he got caught up in the fantasy of being someone else. The whole time he's talking, I'm just sitting there, mouth agape, wondering if I'm being punked. As Fred rambled on, I started noticing little things, like how he'd unconsciously mimic some of Mandy's mannerisms that I'd picked up on during our chats. It was surreal and, honestly, a little impressive in a twisted sort of way. This dude had really committed to the bit. But the real kicker came when Fred casually mentioned that this wasn't his first rodeo. Apparently, he had a whole roster of fake profiles he used to catfish people. He talked about it like it was some kind of hobby, like collecting stamps or building model trains. I felt my skin crawl as I realized just how deep this guy's deception went. At this point, my fight or flight response finally kicked in, and I knew I had to get out of there. I mumbled some excuse about having to meet a friend and practically sprinted out of the coffee shop. As soon as I hit the sidewalk, I blocked Mandy's number and deleted my Tinder account faster than you can say. Trust issues. For weeks after that, I was a paranoid mess. Every time I saw a middle-aged dude on the street, I'd do a double take, half expecting it to be Fred. I'd jump every time my phone buzzed, thinking he'd somehow found a way to contact me again. I even started taking different routes to work, just in case he was trying to track me down. The whole ordeal messed with my head in ways I never expected. I started questioning every online interaction I'd ever had. Was that really my high school buddy I've been chatting with on Facebook, or was it some creep pretending to be him? Was my favorite Twitter mutual actually a 40-year-old dude living in his mom's basement? Trust became a foreign concept. The embarrassment was almost worse than the fear. I mean, how do you tell your friends that you got duped by some middle-aged guy pretending to be a hot chick? It's not exactly the story that paints you in the best light. For a while, I kept it to myself, but the secret ate away at me. Eventually, I cracked and spilled the beans to my best friend over a few, maybe more than a few beers. To his credit, he managed to keep a straight face for about 30 seconds before bursting into uncontrollable laughter. Once he calmed down, he was supportive, but I could tell he was filing this away as prime teasing material for years to come. As time passed, the fear and embarrassment faded, but the impact of the experience lingered. It took me months to even consider looking at a dating app again. When I finally did, I approached it with the caution of a bomb disposal expert. I insisted on video chats before meeting anyone in person and did more background checking than the FBI. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags I missed with Mandy. The convenient excuses for why she couldn't video chat, the vague answers about her job and daily life, the profile pics that looked a little too perfect. But when you're caught up in the excitement of a new connection, it's easy to overlook those things. In the end, my catfish adventure with Fred taught me a lot about the dangers lurking in the digital dating world. It's a jumble out there, folks, and not everyone is who they claim to be. But you know what? Despite everything, I haven't given up on online dating entirely. I'm just a lot more cautious now. This is the story of how I got catfished by Fred, the middle-aged dude masquerading as Mandy, the blonde bombshell. It's not the kind of dating story you dream about telling your grandkids, but it's sure as hell memorable. And hey, at least I got a good story out of it, even if it cost me my dignity and faith in humanity for a while. I'm scrolling through my dating app, bored out of my mind, when suddenly this guy's profile catches my eye. His name's Simon, and he's got this killer smile that practically jumps off the screen. Little did I know that smile was about to lead me into one of the craziest nights of my life. So I match with Simon, and we start chatting. He's funny, charming, and seems genuinely interested in getting to know me. We message back and forth for a couple of weeks, and I'm starting to think this guy might actually be legit. He suggests we meet up for dinner at this new trendy spot downtown, and I'm all for it. The day of our date rolls around, and I'm feeling pretty excited. I spend way too long picking out the perfect outfit and even treat myself to a new purse. It's one of those designer knockoffs that looks way more expensive than it actually is, but hey, fake it till you make it, right? I get to the restaurant, and there's Simon, looking even better in person than in his photos. He's tall, dark-haired, and has this confident vibe that's seriously attractive. We sit down, and the conversation just flows. He's asking me all these questions about my life, my job, my hobbies. I'm totally smitten. Simon tells me he works in finance and travels a lot for his job. He's dropping all these impressive sounding tidbits about his life, and I'm eating it up. He insists on ordering this fancy bottle of wine for us to share, and I'm thinking, wow, this guy really knows how to treat a date. We're about halfway through our meal when nature calls. I excuse myself to use the restroom, and I remember having this split-second debate in my head about whether to take my purse with me. Usually I always do, but I didn't want to seem paranoid or anything. Plus, Simon had been such a gentleman all night, so I leave it at the table. Big mistake. I'm only gone for maybe 5 minutes tops. But when I come back to our table, Simon's nowhere to be seen. At first, I think maybe he stepped out for a smoke or to take a call. But then I notice my purse is gone too. That's when it hits me like a ton of bricks. I've been played. I start freaking out, looking around the restaurant like a crazy person. One of the waiters comes over and asks if everything's okay. When I explain what happened, he gets the manager involved. They pull up the security footage, and there it is in black and white. Simon grabbing my purse and bolting out the door less than 30 seconds after I left the table. I'm in total shock. Not only has this guy just stolen from me, but now I'm stuck with a massive dinner bill that I can't even pay. The manager's pretty understanding about the whole thing and lets me call a friend to bring me some cash. I'm a complete mess, crying, shaking, feeling like the biggest idiot on the planet. But wait, it gets worse. When I finally get home and start calling to cancel my credit cards, I realize Simon's already gone on a shopping spree. This dude managed to rack up over $5,000 in charges in less than 2 hours. He bought electronics, gift cards, you name it. It's like he had this whole thing planned out to maximize the damage in the shortest amount of time. The next few days are a total nightmare. I have to file a police report, which is humiliating enough on its own. Then there's the endless phone calls to dispute charges with the bank, replace my ID, and get new house keys made. I'm paranoid that Simon might try to break into my place since he had my address from my ID. Of course, Simon's completely vanished into thin air. His dating profile is gone, the phone number he gave me is disconnected, and the cops say there's not much they can do without more info to go on. It's like he never even existed. I keep replaying the whole evening in my head, trying to figure out if there were any red flags I missed. Was he too smooth? Too interested? Should I have been suspicious when he insisted on paying for everything? I beat myself up about it for weeks. The whole experience really messes with my head. I'm jumpy and paranoid for months afterward. I take a long break from dating because I can't bring myself to trust anyone new. When I finally do try again, I'm like a totally different person. I insist on video chatting before meeting anyone in person. I do deep Google searches on every potential date. I even start carrying one of those personal alarm things in my purse. Looking back now, I can see how Simon had this whole thing planned from the get-go. The expensive wine, insisting on paying for everything. It was all calculated to make me let my guard down. It worked like a charm. The financial hit was bad enough, but the emotional damage was way worse. It's not just about the money or the stuff he stole. It's the feeling of being violated, of having your trust completely shattered. I mean, who does that to another person? Who puts in all that effort just to rip someone off? Even now, years later, I still get a knot in my stomach when I think about that night. I'm mostly over it, but there's still this little voice in the back of my head that pipes up whenever I meet someone new. It's like this constant reminder to keep my walls up, to always be on guard. I've had some good dating experiences since then, but none of them have been quite the same. There's always this tiny part of me that's waiting for the other shoe to drop, Like, is this person really who they say they are, or am I being set up again? Sometimes I wonder what Simon's doing now. Is he still out there pulling the same scam on other unsuspecting women? Did he ever face any consequences for what he did? Part of me hopes he got caught and is rotting in jail somewhere, but another part of me knows that's probably wishful thinking. I guess the whole thing just goes to show that you never really know who you're dealing with, especially in the world of online dating. People can present whatever version of themselves they want, and you have no way of knowing what's real and what's not until it's too late. I swear I'm never using a dating app again after what happened last weekend. I'm still kind of freaked out about it, to be honest. Okay, so picture this. It's Friday night, and I'm getting ready for a date with this guy, Edward. We matched on Tinder a couple weeks ago, and he seemed pretty cool. The usual stuff. cue pics, good job, into the same music as me. Nothing weird. So I get to this trendy new bar downtown, feeling all excited and nervous. I'm wearing my favorite outfit, the one that always makes me feel confident. I grab a seat at the bar and order a drink while I wait. Then Edward walks in, and I'm like, damn, he looks even better than his photos. Tall, great smile, dressed really well. We start chatting, and it's going great. He's funny, asks me lots of questions about myself, and we're both laughing a lot. After a couple of hours, we're both getting hungry. Edward suggests this 24-hour diner nearby, and I'm totally down for some late-night comfort food. We walk there, and he holds my hand. It feels nice, you know. At the diner, we share some greasy fries and milkshakes. We're still deep in conversation, and I'm definitely feeling a spark. It's after midnight when we finish eating. Edward offers to drive me home, but I tell him I'll just grab an Uber. I always do this on first dates. It's just safer not to let a guy know where I live right away. But as soon as I say this, it's like a switch flips in Edward. His whole mood changes instantly. He starts insisting that he drive me home. I politely decline again, but he's not having it. He gets more and more worked up, demanding to know why I don't trust him. His voice is getting louder, and people are starting to stare. I'm feeling super uncomfortable, but I'm also scared to just get up and leave. What if he follows me? I try to calm him down, explaining it's just my policy for first dates. But he's full on ranting now, saying stuff like, women always do this to me. You lead me on and then reject me. His eyes are wild, and he's clenching his fists on the table. I've never seen someone's mood change so fast, and it's terrifying. I manage to catch our waitress's eye and quietly ask her to call me a cab. But Edward sees this and completely loses it. He starts screaming at me, calling me all kinds of awful names. He knocks over his milkshake, and it goes everywhere. I'm shaking and trying not to cry. The other customers are all staring, and I feel so humiliated on top of being scared. Thank God the manager comes over and tells Edward he needs to leave. Edward storms out, still yelling. I'm worried he might wait outside for me, so the staff let me stay until my cab arrives. They even walk me out to make sure I get in safely. I'm so shaken up I can barely give the driver my address. As soon as I get home, I block Edward's number and unmatch him on Tinder. But I still feel so on edge. What if he tries to find me somehow? I barely sleep that night, jumping at every little noise outside my apartment. In the morning, I see I have a bunch of missed calls and angry texts from Edward that came through before I blocked him. Somehow he found my Instagram too and was sending me DMs. I have to block him there as well. The next few days are awful. I'm paranoid and scared to leave my apartment. I keep replaying the night in my head, wondering if I missed some warning signs. How could he seem so normal and then snap like that? It makes me question my judgment and wonder how well you can really know someone from just chatting online. On Tuesday, my best friend Jess comes over after work. She can tell something's wrong, so I end up telling her everything. She's horrified and insists I file a police report. I'm hesitant at first. I feel kind of embarrassed about the whole thing and don't want to make a big deal of it. But Jess convinces me it's better to be safe than sorry. So on Wednesday, I go to the police station. I'm super nervous, but the officer I talk to is really understanding. She takes down all the details and says they'll keep the report on file in case anything else happens. She also gives me some advice about staying safe while online dating. For the next week or so, I'm still feeling pretty jumpy. I work from home as much as I can and only go out when I have to. When I do go out, I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, worried I'll see Edward. I start having trouble sleeping and keep having nightmares about that night at the diner. Jess convinces me to talk to a therapist, so I set up an appointment for the following week. In the meantime, I throw myself into work and try to keep busy. I binge watch a bunch of shows on Netflix and start learning how to bake bread. Anything to keep my mind occupied. The therapy appointment is actually really helpful. We talk about the incident and how it's affecting me. The therapist gives me some techniques for managing anxiety and helps me process what happened. I start to feel a little bit better, but I'm still not ready to even think about dating again. A couple of weeks after the incident, I'm at the grocery store when I think I see Edward. My heart starts racing, and I abandon my cart in the middle of the aisle and practically run out of the store. It turns out it wasn't even him, just some guy who looked similar, but it shows me how much this whole thing has messed with my head. It's been about a month now since that night. I haven't heard anything else from Edward, which is a relief. I'm starting to feel a little more like myself, but I'm definitely more cautious now. I've deleted all my dating apps and told my friends I'm taking a break from dating for a while. I'm still working through everything with my therapist. She's helping me understand that what happened wasn't my fault and that it's okay to take time to heal. I'm also thinking about taking a self-defense class just to feel more empowered. So yeah, that's my crazy dating horror story. It's not something I ever want to go through again, that's for sure. I'm just taking it one day at a time now, focusing on work and spending time with friends and family. Maybe someday I'll feel ready to try dating again. But for now, I'm okay being single. At least I know I can trust my dogs not to turn into psychos over an Uber ride, right? I'm getting ready for what I thought would be a normal first date. Little did I know I was about to step into a total nightmare. Buckle up, because this story is wild from start to finish. So I met this guy, Harry, from Facebook. We've been chatting for a few days, and he seemed pretty cool. You know, the usual stuff. We both liked the same bands, had similar taste in movies, that kind of thing. He suggested we meet up for coffee, and I figured why not? I mean, what's the worst that could happen, right? Oh boy, was I in for a surprise. I got to the coffee shop a little early, feeling those typical first date butterflies. I grabbed a table out of the window and kept glancing at the door, wondering if I'd recognize Harry from his pics. And this guy walks in, and I kid you not, he makes a beeline straight for me. Before I could even say hi, he leans down and tries to plant a big sloppy kiss right on my mouth. I jerked back so fast I almost tipped my chair over. Talk about a red flag, right? So I'm sitting there totally shocked while this guy, who I guess is Harry, plops down across from me with his creepy grin on his face. Up close, I realized he looked way older than his profile pics, like easily 15 years older than me. At this point, alarm bells are going off in my head, but I didn't want to be rude, so I stayed put. Things only got weirder from there. Harry kept staring at me super intensely, barely blinking. It was like he was trying to memorize every detail of my face or something. He'd lean in way too close when he talked, and I swear I could smell what he had for lunch. Spoiler alert. It wasn't pleasant. I kept trying to subtly inch my chair back, but he just scooted closer. The conversation was painful, to say the least. Harry dominated it, rambling on about himself nonstop. He asked me a question, but then immediately interrupted to talk more about himself before I could even answer. It was clear he wasn't actually interested in getting to know me at all. He kept bringing up really personal topics, like asking about my dating history and if I wanted kids. Way too much for a first date, you know. At one point, he started going on about how he could sense we had a special connection. He said he felt like he'd known me in a past life or something. I was getting major creep vibes by this point, but I didn't want to make a scene. About 30 minutes in, I was more than ready to bail. I made up an excuse about needing to leave soon for another appointment. Big mistake. Harry's whole demeanor instantly changed. His eyes got all intense, and he reached across the table to grab my wrist. He started begging me not to go, saying we were meant to be together and that he couldn't let me leave. I tried to gently pull my arm away, but his grip was surprisingly strong. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I forcefully yanked my arm back and stood up, knocking over my chair in the process. Harry jumped up too, looking angry now. I booked it towards the door with Harry hot on my heels. As I speed walked down the sidewalk, he kept trying to grab my arm or shoulder. I was seriously freaking out at this point, looking around for somewhere safe to go. I spotted a grocery store across the street and made a beeline for it. I figured there'd be more people inside, and maybe I could lose Harry in the aisles. But nope, he followed me right in, calling out my name and making a scene. I zigzagged through the store, desperately looking for an employee or security guard. I finally spotted a stock boy and ran up to him, saying loudly that this man was following me and wouldn't leave me alone. The poor stock boy looked totally confused but stepped between us. Harry tried to push past him, insisting we were together. I shook my head frantically, saying I didn't know him. By this point, we attracted attention from other shoppers. A manager came over to see what all the commotion was about. I quickly explained the situation, my voice shaking. The manager told Harry he needed to leave immediately or they'd call the police. Harry got this crazed look in his eyes. For a second, I thought he might actually attack someone. But then he turned and stormed out of the store, kicking over a display on his way out. I was shaking like a leaf at this point. The manager was super nice and let me hang out in the break room to calm down. One of the employees even offered to walk me in my car when I was ready to leave. I thought that would be the end of it, but nope. Harry somehow got my phone number, I guess from the dating app, and started calling and texting me nonstop. I blocked his number, but he just used different phones to keep contacting me. The messages started out with him apologizing and begging for another chance, but they quickly turned angry and threatening when I didn't respond. He said he knew where I lived and worked, he didn't thank God, and that he'd find me. I was seriously freaked out. I ended up filing a police report just to have it on record in case things escalated. I also told my friends and family what happened so they could keep an eye out. My roommate was amazing. She stayed with me for a few nights and helped me set up some extra security measures like a doorbell camera. The calls and texts kept coming for about a week. It got so bad that I was jumpy all the time, always looking over my shoulder. I couldn't sleep and I was scared to leave my apartment. I even considered changing my phone number. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The calls and texts just ended. I haven't heard from Harry since, but I'm still paranoid about running into him somewhere. I deleted all my dating apps and I'm taking a break from dating for a while. It really opened my eyes to how quickly things can go south, even in public places. I keep replaying the date in my head, wondering if there were signs I missed or if I could have done something differently. I thought I'd hit the jackpot when I matched with Lisa on this dating app. Her profile was fire, cute pics, witty bio, the works. We'd been chatting for a couple weeks, and things seemed to be clicking. So when she suggested we meet up for dinner at this fancy new place downtown, I was all in. Little did I know I was about to walk into the date from hell. I roll up to the restaurant feeling pretty good. I'm rocking my favorite shirt, hair's on point, and I got that first date excitement buzzing. I spot Lisa at the bar, and damn, she looks even better in person. We do that awkward hug thing and head to our table. At first, everything's going smooth. We're laughing, swapping stories, and thinking this might actually go somewhere. Then the waiter comes over with the menus, and that's when things start to get weird. Lisa barely glances at the menu before she starts ordering. And I'm not talking about a salad and an entree. No, she's going all out. Oysters, caviar, some fancy-ass soup I can't even pronounce. I'm trying to play it cool, but inside I'm freaking out a little. This place isn't exactly McDonald's, you know. I figure maybe she's just really hungry or wants to impress me or something. So I order my food, just a normal-sized meal, thanks, and we get back to talking. But now Lisa's on her phone constantly. At first, I think she's just checking the time or something, but nope. She's full-on texting, merely looking up to acknowledge me. Our appetizers arrive, and it's like a scene from a food competition show. The table's covered in plates, and Lisa's diving in like she hasn't eaten in days. Meanwhile, I'm nibbling on a breadstick, watching my wallet shrink with every bite she takes. As we're waiting for the main course, Lisa drops the first bomb. She casually mentions that her friend Megan is on a bad date across town and might join us later. I'm thinking, okay, weird, but whatever. But then she follows it up with, oh, by the way, you mind covering Megan's meal too? She's at that new sushi place. I nearly choke on my water. Is she serious? I'm trying to figure out if this is some kind of prank when the waiter arrives with our main courses. And let me tell you, it's like a feast for a small country. Lisa's got this massive steak, lobster tail, and about a dozen sides. My lonely chicken breast looks pathetic in comparison. Throughout the meal, Lisa's attention is split between shoveling food into her mouth and texting furiously. I'm barely getting a word in edgewise, and I'm starting to feel like I'm just here to foot the bill. But it gets worse. Lisa starts ordering more drinks, expensive cocktails that probably cost more than my entire meal. She's hardly touching them, just taking a sip and then moving on to the next one. I'm watching the glasses pile up, mentally calculating how many extra shifts I'll need to work to pay for all this. Just when I think we're finally done, Lisa announces she wants dessert. Not just one dessert, mind you. No, she wants to try every single dessert on the menu. The waiter's eyes light up like it's Christmas. I'm pretty sure I can hear my credit card sobbing in my wallet. As we're waiting for our dessert feast to arrive, Lisa's phone buzzes again. She reads the message and then looks at me with this weird mix of excitement and fake sympathy. Turns out, Megan's date went from bad to worse, and now she's on her way to join us. Great, just great. The desserts arrive, and it's like Willy Wonka's factory exploded on our table. Cakes, pies, ice cream, you name it. Lisa takes about 2 bites of each before declaring she's too full to eat anymore. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there staring at a table full of half-eaten food, feeling like I'm in some sort of twisted dream. But wait, there's more. Lisa decides she wants to get some food to go for Megan. because apparently the mountain of food on our table isn't enough. So she orders a bunch of appetizers and entrees, all packaged up nice and neat in takeout containers. Finally, mercifully, the bill arrives. I'm legit scared to look at it, but I know I have to face the music. I flip it over and holy shit. The total is more than I make in a week. I'm sitting there trying to figure out how I'm gonna pay for this without having to sell a kidney when Lisa drops the final bombshell. "Oh no," she says, rummaging through her purse. "I think I forgot my wallet. You don't mind covering this, right? I'll get you back next time." Next time. Is she kidding? I'm too stunned to even argue. I just hand over my credit card, watching my financial future crumble before my eyes. As we're waiting for the waiter to return, Megan finally shows up. She's all teary-eyed about her bad date, and Lisa's immediately in full comfort mode, completely ignoring me. The waiter returns with my card and a receipt that's about a mile long. I sign it, feeling like I'm signing away my soul. Lisa grabs the takeout bags, links arms with Megan, and announces they're heading to a bar to dissect Megan's date disaster. And just like that, they're gone. No thank you, no acknowledgement of the small fortune I just spent nothing. I'm left sitting there, surrounded by the remnants of our meal, wondering what the hell just happened. I finally drag myself out of the restaurant, feeling dazed and a lot poorer. As I'm walking to my car, still trying to process the evening, my phone pings. It's a message from Lisa on the dating app. "Had a great time tonight. We should totally do it again soon. Maybe that new French place next time." I stare at my phone, caught between laughing and crying. Is this girl for real? I don't even bother responding. I just delete the app, get in my car, and drive home, promising myself that my next date will be at a place where I order at a counter and pay before I eat. That's how my date with Lisa went. A total disaster from start to finish. I'm still paying off that credit card bill, and I've developed a slight twitch whenever I see someone order lobster. Let's just say I won't be rushing into any fancy dinner dates anytime soon. Okay, so you're not gonna believe the absolute nightmare of a date I had last weekend. I'm talking full-on psycho vibes. Grab a drink, because this is gonna be a wild ride. So it all started when I matched with this guy Tom on Tinder. His profile seemed pretty normal, cute pics, funny bio, the usual stuff. We chatted for a few days and he seemed cool, so I figured why not meet up for drinks. We agreed to meet at this trendy cocktail bar downtown on Saturday night. I got there a few minutes early and grabbed a seat at the bar. Tom showed up right on time, and I gotta admit, he looked even better than his pics. Tall, dark hair, nice smile. Totally my type. We ordered some fancy mixed drinks and started chatting. At first, it was just your typical first date small talk. Where'd you grow up? What do you do for work? That kind of thing. Tom was charming and funny, cracking jokes and asking lots of questions about me. I was actually starting to think this might turn into a good night. But then, about 30 minutes in, things started to get weird. Tom kept bringing up his friends and how impressed they'd be that he was on a date with me. At first, it was just casual comments here and there, like, "Oh man, my buddy Jake is gonna be so jealous when I tell him about this." I laughed it off, thinking he was just nervous and trying to impress me. But as the night went on, he just wouldn't let it go. Every topic somehow came back to his friends. How they never believed he could get a date with someone as hot as me. How they were all waiting to hear how it went. How he couldn't wait to rub it in their faces. It was getting really uncomfortable. I tried changing the subject, asking about his hobbies or work or literally anything else, but he always steered it back to his friends somehow. At one point, he even pulled out his phone and was like, "Mind if I snap a quick pic to send the guys?" I awkwardly declined and he seemed weirdly disappointed. By this point, I was getting major creep vibes and wanted to bail, but I didn't want to be rude, so I figured I'd finish my drink and then make an excuse to leave. Big mistake. As soon as I took my last sip, Tom perked up and was like, "Great, you're done. Let's head back to my place now." I was totally caught off guard and stammered something about having an early day tomorrow. But he was super insistent, saying it would only take a few minutes. He just wanted to pop by and say hi to his roommates. I firmly declined again, but he kept pushing. He started guilt-tripping me, saying how embarrassed he'd be if he came home alone, how his friends would make fun of him. I stood my ground and said I really needed to get going. That's when things got really scary. Tom's whole demeanor changed. His eyes got all wild, and he started talking really fast, practically begging me to go home with him. He said he'd do anything, he just needed to prove to his friends that he was on a real date. I was seriously freaked out at this point. I grabbed my purse and stood up to leave, but Tom grabbed my wrist hard. He had this crazed look in his eyes and kept insisting we go to his place, just for a minute just to say hi to his friends. My heart was racing. I yanked my arm away and practically ran out of the bar. Tom followed me outside, still baiting me to come home with him. I flagged down a taxi and jumped in, locking the door behind me. As we pulled away, I could see Tom in the rearview mirror, looking totally dejected. The whole ride home, I couldn't stop shaking. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. Was it all just some weird bet with his friends, or was there something more sinister going on? When I got home, I immediately blocked Tom's number and unmatched on Tinder, but I was paranoid for days that he was gonna show up at my apartment or something. I kept all the doors locked and even asked my roommate to crash in my room for a couple nights. The whole thing was just so bizarre and disturbing. Like, who acts that psycho on a first date? I couldn't shake the image of Tom's face when he grabbed my wrist, that wild, desperate look in his eyes. It was like he was a completely different person from the charming guy I'd been chatting with all night. I kept wondering what his deal was. Was he just super insecure and desperate to impress his friends? Or was there some deeper psychological issue going on? Maybe he had a bet with his buddies, but that doesn't explain the total personality change. Part of me was morally curious to know more. Like, what would happen if I'd actually gone to his place? Were there even really friends there, or was that all made up? But then I reminded myself how terrifying it was in the moment, and I was glad I trusted my instincts and got out of there. A few days later, I was still pretty shaken up about the whole thing. I decided to tell my roommate what had happened. She was totally freaked out and thought I should report Tom to the police or at least to Tinder. But I wasn't sure. Nothing had actually happened, really. And I was kind of worried about provoking this guy further, if he retaliated somehow. In the end, I decided not to report it. But I did take some precautions. I started carrying pepper spray, and I've been way more selective about who I swipe right on. I'm definitely more attuned to any little red flags or weird vibes now. It's been almost 2 weeks since that night, and I still get a little creeped out thinking about it. I've been on a couple dates since then, but I'm definitely more cautious now. I always meet in public places, and I make sure a friend knows where I am. I guess the silver lining is that it could have been way worse. At least I got out of there before anything really bad happened. But it's definitely made me more aware of how quickly things can turn scary, even with someone who seems totally normal at first. So you're not gonna believe this, but I just had the craziest date of my life. Like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what happened. It all started last Tuesday when I was at the library. I was just minding my own business, looking for some books on houseplants. I've been trying to not kill him lately, when I literally crashed into this guy. Books went flying everywhere. It was so embarrassing. As we're picking up our stuff and apologizing, I noticed he was actually pretty cute. Tall, dark hair, nice eyes. He introduced himself as Milan, and we got to talking. Turns out we had a bunch in common. Both into reading, we're at the library. Both new to the area, both looking to meet new people. When he asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime, I thought, why not? We exchanged numbers and texted for a few days before deciding to meet up for sushi that weekend. I was pretty excited, not gonna lie. It had been ages since I'd been on a real date, and Milan seemed sweet. I spent way too long getting ready, trying on like every outfit I own. When I finally got to the restaurant, Milan was already there waiting. He looked nice in a button-up shirt and dress pants, maybe a little fancy for sushi, but whatever. As soon as I sat down, though, I could tell something was off. Milan barely made eye contact and kept fidgeting with his napkin. I tried to make small talk to ease the awkwardness, asking about his week and stuff, but he just gave super short answers and seemed distracted. I figured he was just nervous, so I kept trying. The waiter came to take our drink orders, and that's when I noticed Milan's tie. It was this bright blue one with little cartoon sushi rolls on it. Kind of dorky, but also cute. I thought complimenting it might help break the ice. Oh man, was I wrong. As soon as I said, "Hey, I like your tie," Milan's eyes got huge and he just burst into tears, like full-on sobbing right there at the table. I had no clue what to do. People were staring, and I was mortified. I outwardly tried to comfort him, asking if he was okay, if I said something wrong. Between sobs, Milan choked out that the tie was a gift from his ex-girlfriend. Apparently, they had broken up just a few days before, and he was still really messed up about it. He admitted he wasn't ready to date yet, but felt too guilty to cancel on me. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, awkward situation, but understandable. We could just call it a night and go our separate ways. But then things got weird, like really weird. Milan suddenly switched from crying to anger. He started ranting about how his ex was evil, how all women were evil, how I was probably evil too. His voice kept getting louder, and people were definitely staring now. I tried to calm him down, saying stuff like, hey, it's okay, breakups are tough, but that just made him angrier. He accused me of patronizing him and started listing all these random things he hated about me, my hair, my shoes, the way I said, too much. I was getting seriously freaked out and just wanted to leave. I pulled Milan I was going to the bathroom and grabbed my purse. As soon as I stood up, he grabbed my wrist really hard. He hissed that I'd better not try to leave, that we weren't done talking. I yanked my arm away and practically ran to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall. My heart was pounding and I felt like I might throw up. I could hear Milan yelling for me in the restaurant. I texted my roommate in a panic, begging her to come pick me up as soon as. After a few minutes, I heard the bathroom door open and Milan's voice calling my name. He must have followed me in there. I was full on freaking out, trying not to make a sound. He kept saying creepy stuff like, I know you're in here, and don't try to hide from me. Just when I thought I was going to have a panic attack, I heard another voice, a woman who worked at the restaurant. She told Milan he needed to leave the women's restroom immediately or she'd call the police. I heard him argue with her for a minute before finally leaving. The employee knocked on my stall door, asking if I was okay. I came out shaking and on the verge of tears. She was so nice, letting me wait in the back office until my roommate arrived. Apparently, after I left, Milan had a total meltdown in the restaurant. He was throwing plates, threatening other customers, and screaming about how women always abandon him. They had to physically drag him out of there. While I was waiting, the manager came to check on me. He said they'd called the police and wanted to know if I needed medical attention. My wrist was starting to bruise where Milan had grabbed me, but I just wanted to get out of there. I gave them my contact info in case the cops needed a statement. My roommate finally showed up and I bolted out of there so fast. I was a mess the whole ride home, switching between being terrified and being angry at myself for not seeing any red flags. My roommate tried to comfort me, saying it wasn't my fault and sometimes people are just really good at hiding their crazy. For days afterward, I was so on edge. I kept thinking I saw Milan everywhere, at the grocery store, walking down my street, in the parking lot at work. He tried calling and texting me a bunch of times, alternating between apologizing and accusing me of ruining his life. I ended up having to block his number and all his social media. A few days later, I got a call from the police. They wanted me to come in and give a statement about what happened. Apparently, Milan had priors for harassment and stalking. They were building a case against him and my incident could help. I was nervous, but I went in and told them everything. The detective I talked to was actually really nice. She gave me some resources for counseling and helped me file for a restraining order. She also suggested I change up my routines for a while, just to be safe. So I switched the times I go to work and the gym, started taking different routes home, that kind of thing. It's been about 2 weeks now and things are slowly getting back to normal. I'm still a little jumpy, but I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder anymore. My friends have been great, checking in on me and offering to hang out so I'm not alone. I did end up seeing a therapist a couple of times. It helped to talk through everything and get some coping strategies for the anxiety I was feeling. She said what I went through was genuinely traumatic. It's normal to feel shaken up. I was scrolling through TikTok at 2 a.m., bored out of my mind, when this ad for a high school reunion pops up. I'm thinking, no way, it's been 10 years already. Curiosity got the better of me, and before I knew it, I'd signed up. Little did I know that click would lead to the worst date of my life. Fast forward to the reunion. I'm standing by the punch bowl, feeling like a fish out of water when this guy walks up. He introduces himself as Gordon, and I vaguely remember him from senior year. We chat for a bit, and he seems decent enough. We exchange numbers, and I figure why not. I've been in a bit of a dating drought anyway. A few days later, Gordon texts me asking if I want to grab dinner. I'm hesitant at first, but then I think, what's the worst that could happen? Oh boy, if only I'd known. We agree to meet at this fancy Italian place downtown. I spent way too long getting ready, trying on practically every outfit I own before settling on a little black dress. I'm actually kind of excited. It's been ages since I've been on a proper date. I get to the restaurant a few minutes early, feeling pretty good about myself, but then I wait and wait and wait some more. Gordon finally shows up 20 minutes late without so much as a sorry or an explanation. He just grunts a hello and heads inside. I should turn around right then and there, but I didn't want to be rude. Big mistake. As soon as we step inside, it's like a switch flips in Gordon. The hostess greets us with a smile, but he completely ignores her. Instead, he pushes past her to a table he likes better than the one she's trying to lead us to. I'm already cringing, but I try to convince myself he's just nervous or something. We sit down, and our waiter comes over to introduce himself. He's this young guy, probably working his way through college. Before he can even finish his spiel about the specials, Gordon cuts him off and demands their most expensive bottle of wine. The waiter politely explains that they need to see ID for alcohol orders, and that's when Gordon really loses it. He starts ranting about how he's clearly over 21 and how dare the waiter question him. His voice is getting louder and louder, and people at nearby tables are starting to stare. I'm sitting there, wishing I could disappear into my chair. The waiter, bless him, keeps his cool and apologizes, saying it's just restaurant policy. Gordon eventually calms down enough to show his ID, but he's clearly still fuming. Throughout the entire meal, Gordon is just awful to every staff member who comes near our table. He complains that the bread isn't fresh enough, sends back his steak twice because it's not cooked right, and even has the nerve to criticize the way the busboy is clearing tables nearby. I'm trying my best to silently apologize to the staff with my eyes, but I'm also getting more and more uncomfortable by the minute. Between his outbursts at the staff, Gordon keeps trying to impress me with stories about his job and his fancy car. He goes on and on about how he's on track to make partner at his law firm and how he just bought a brand new BMW. But honestly, I'm barely listening. All I can focus on is how he snaps his fingers at the waiter every time he wants something and how he never says please or thank you. The final straw comes when it's time for dessert. Gordon orders this fancy chocolate souffle, making a big show of how it's the most expensive thing on the dessert menu. When it arrives, he takes one bite and declares it inedible. He calls the waiter over and starts berating him, saying the chef should be fired and that we shouldn't have to pay for anything. The waiter, still impressively calm, offers to bring something else, but Gordon's having none of it. At this point, I've had enough. I stand up, apologize to the waiter, and tell Gordon I'm leaving. He looks shocked, like he can't believe I'm not impressed by his behavior. I grab my purse and start walking out, but Gordon follows me, demanding to know what's wrong. In the parking lot, I finally let him have it. I tell him how disgusted I am by his treatment of the staff, how embarrassed I've been all night, and how I never want to see him again. He tries to defend himself, saying the service was terrible, and he was just standing up for us, but I'm not buying it. As I'm getting into my car, Gordon suddenly changes tactics. He starts apologizing, saying he was just nervous and trying to impress me. He begs for another chance, promising he'll do better next time. But I've seen his true colors, and there's no way I'm falling for that. I drive home feeling a mix of emotions, relief that I'm out of there, anger at Gordon for ruining what could have been a nice evening, and embarrassment that I didn't speak up sooner. I can't stop thinking about the poor staff at the restaurant and how they must deal with people like Gordon all the time. The next day, I wake up to a bunch of texts from Gordon. He's still trying to apologize, making excuses for his behavior. I ignore them all and block his number. Then I decide to do something I've never done before. I write a review of the restaurant online, praising the staff for their patience and professionalism in the face of such a difficult customer. A few days later, I'm still cringing when I think about that disaster of a date. I run into a friend from high school and end up telling her the whole story. She listens sympathetically and then drops a bombshell. Apparently, Gordon has always been like this. She tells me stories from school that I'd either forgotten or never knew about how he used to bully kids and talk back to teachers. It turns out Gordon had been suspended multiple times in high school for his behavior, but his parents always managed to smooth things over. He'd even been arrested once for getting into a fight with a waiter at a local diner, but again, his family's connections got the charges dropped. Hearing all this, I realize how lucky I am that I saw his true nature on the first date. I can't imagine how awful it would be to get into a relationship with someone like that, only to discover their nasty side later on. I decided to reach out to the restaurant manager to apologize for Gordon's behavior and offer to pay for our meal. The manager was incredibly understanding and told me not to worry about it. Apparently, they had issues with Gordon before and had actually banned him from the restaurant after our date. One high school reunion, one terrible date, and a whole lot of regret for not trusting my instincts sooner. At least now I have a wild story to tell at parties, right? So, Jake sets me up on this blind date. We're supposed to meet at this trendy new bar downtown on Saturday night. I spent way too much time getting ready, trying to look casual but not too casual. I even ironed my shirt, which is a big deal for me. I'm actually kind of excited, thinking maybe this could be the start of something good. I get to the bar a few minutes early, grab a seat at the counter, and start nursing a beer while I wait. The place is packed, music's thumping, and I'm people watching to kill time. That's my spot, or walking in. Jess is drop dead gorgeous, like model level beautiful. She's wearing this tight red dress that's turning heads left and right. I'm thinking, no way this is my date. But then she locks eyes with me and heads straight over. We start chatting, and at first, everything seems great. She's funny, she's smart, and we're vibing pretty well. We move to a quieter corner of the bar so we can hear each other better. Jess starts telling me about her work as a lawyer, dropping names of big cases she's worked on and important clients she's represented. I'm impressed, thinking Jake really hit it out of the park with his setup. But then things start getting a little weird. Jess keeps checking her phone every few minutes, and she seems distracted. At one point, she excuses herself to go to the bathroom, and she's gone for like 20 minutes. When she comes back, her makeup's all touched up, and she's acting even more fidgety than before. We keep talking, and I start noticing some inconsistencies in her stories. Like she mentions working on a case that I'm pretty sure was in the news years ago, way before she would have been out of law school. I brush it off, thinking maybe I'm misremembering, but it plants this little seed of doubt in my mind. As the night goes on, Jess gets more and more flirty. She's touching my arm, laughing at all of my jokes, and even suggesting we go back to her place after this. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm tempted. But something still feels off, and I can't quite put my finger on it. Then, out of nowhere, this guy comes up to our table. He's acting all starstruck, asking Jess for a picture. I'm confused as hell, thinking maybe she really is some big shot lawyer. But then he says something that makes my blood run cold. He goes, "I love your OnlyFans content." Jess turns bright red and tries to laugh it off, telling the guy he must be mistaking her for someone else. But he's persistent, even pulling out his phone to show her the profile. And sure enough, there's Jess in all her glory, definitely not doing anything lawyer-like. I'm sitting there in shock, trying to process what's happening. Jess is frantically trying to explain, saying it's just a side gig to pay off student loans. But all I can think about is how she's been lying to me all night, of being a lawyer, about her life, about everything. The guy finally leaves, but the damage is done. The atmosphere between Jess and me is beyond awkward now. She's still trying to salvage the situation, telling me it's not a big deal and that lots of people have OnlyFans accounts these days, but I'm not buying it. I tell her I need some air and head outside. My mind is racing, trying to figure out what to do. On one hand, I'm disappointed and feel lied to. On the other hand, I'm trying to be open-minded and not judge her for her choices. But the lying is what really gets me. If she can lie so easily about her entire career, what else is she lying about? While I'm outside, I shoot a quick text to Jake, asking if he knew about Jess' real job. He responds almost immediately, saying he had no idea and that he's just as shocked as I am. Apparently, Jess had told everyone in their friend group that she was a lawyer. Jake apologizes profusely for setting me up with her, saying he feels terrible about the whole thing. I take a deep breath and head back inside, deciding to give Jess a chance to explain herself. When I get back to our table, she's gone. All that's left is a napkin with her number scribbled on it and a hastily written sorry underneath. I sit back down, feeling a mix of relief and frustration. Part of me is glad she left, saving us both from an even more awkward conversation. But another part of me is annoyed that she just bailed without really explaining anything. I finish my drink, trying to process the whole bizarre evening. The bartender comes over and asks if I want another, but I decide it's time to call it a night. As I'm getting ready to leave, I notice Jess left her purse behind. Great, now I have to deal with this too. I grab the purse, figuring I'll give it to Jake to return to her. But as I'm picking it up, it falls open and a bunch of stuff spills out. And wouldn't you know it, right there on top is a business card. Not for a law firm, but for her OnlyFans account. At this point, I'm just done. I scoop everything back into the purse, leave with the bartender in case she comes back for it, and head home. The whole ride back, I'm replaying the evening in my head, wondering how I didn't see through her acts sooner. When I get home, I've got a bunch of missed calls and texts from Jess. She's apologizing, begging me to hear her out, saying she really likes me and didn't mean to lie. But I'm not in the mood for more excuses. I send her a quick text saying I'm not interested in seeing her again and that she should pick up her purse from the bar. The next day, I wake up to even more messages from Jess. She's still trying to explain herself, saying she only lied because she was embarrassed about her real job and wanted to impress me. Part of me feels bad for her, but I just can't get past the deception. I spend the rest of the weekend trying to put the whole thing behind me. Jake calls to apologize again, and we end up laughing about how disastrous the date was. He promises to do better background checks on any future setups, but honestly, I think I'm swearing off blind dates for a while. So one minute I'm on a date with a supposed hotshot lawyer, the next I'm uncovering this whole web of lies. Just goes to show you never really know what you're getting into with blind dates. At least it makes for a good story, right? My phone buzzes with a text from this guy, Ryan, that I'd been chatting with on a dating app. He's asking if I want to grab coffee tomorrow. Now, normally I'd make up some lame excuse, but something about this guy seemed different. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. Little did I know, I was in for the weirdest date of my life. So, Saturday rolls around, and I'm low-key freaking out. I must have changed my outfit like 5 times before settling on something that said, I tried, but not too hard. I'd get to the cafe early because I'm that person, and I'm sitting there trying not to look like a total loser while I wait. Then Ryan walks in, and holy crap, he's even cuter in person. He's got these bright green eyes and this smile that could probably charm the pants off anyone. We eat our coffees and start chatting, and it's like crazy easy. You know when you meet someone and it feels like you've known them forever? It was like that. We're laughing about dumb memes, debating which true crime podcast is the best. It's obviously my favorite, Murder, Don't At Me, and swapping embarrassing stories from high school. Before I know it, we've been talking for hours. My coffee's long gone cold, but I'm too into our conversation to care. Rian suggests we grab some dinner, and I'm totally down. We walk to this cute little place nearby, and our shoulders keep bumping as we walk. It's giving me those butterflies, you know. At the restaurant, we share this massive plate of pasta and split a bottle of wine. The conversation just keeps flowing, and I'm starting to think this might actually be going somewhere. After dinner, neither of us wants the night to end, so we decide to take a walk in the park. It's getting dark, and the streetlights are coming on, casting this soft glow over everything. It's like straight out of a rom-com, I swear. We find a bench and sit down, and there's this tension in the air. I'm thinking he's definitely gonna kiss me. My heart's racing, and I'm low-key panicking, trying to remember if I have anything gross in my teeth from dinner. But then Ryan gets this weird look on his face. He starts fidgeting with his hands and won't look me in the eye. I figured he's just nervous, so I try to lighten the mood with a joke about how this is the part in the movie where the serial killer reveals himself. That's when things take a turn for the bizarre. Ryan looks at me with these sad puppy dog eyes and just blurts out that he thinks he might be attracted to the other gender. I'm sitting there completely blindsided, trying to process what he just said. Like, we'd spent the whole day flirting and vibing, and now he drops this bomb on me. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Part of me wonders if this is some kind of sick joke, but the look on his face tells me he's dead serious. He starts rambling about how he's been questioning his taste for a while, but he's been trying to fight it. Apparently, our date made him realize that he couldn't keep denying who he really was. I'm just sitting there totally stunned. I mean, what are you supposed to say in that situation? Congrats on your awakening. Thanks for using me as your gay litmus test. I feel like I'm in some kind of twisted rom-com where the punchline is on me. Rand keeps apologizing, saying he never meant to lead me on and that he really did enjoy spending time with me. But honestly, I'm barely listening at this point. My mind is racing, replaying every moment of our date, trying to spot the signs I'd obviously missed. I'm thinking back to how he complimented my outfit when we met up, but now I'm wondering if he was actually checking out my shoes. Or how he kept mentioning his friend Mark throughout the night. Was that actually his crush? And when we were debating hot celebrities, was he a little too enthusiastic about Chris Hemsworth? Then I start questioning everything about myself. Like, am I so repulsive that I turned this guy gay? I know that's not how it works, but try telling that to my self-esteem in that moment. and how many other guys out there are using dating apps to figure out the way they swing. I'm also kind of angry, to be honest. I mean, I get that coming out as hard and confusing, but did he have to use me to do it? I spent all this time getting ready, putting myself out there, actually allowing myself to like someone. And for what? To be someone's orientation experiment. Eventually, I mumble something about needing to get home and practically bolt out of there. I speed walk all the way back to my apartment, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. As soon as I get home, I call my best friend, Jess, and word vomit the whole story to her. Jess, being the amazing friend she is, comes right over with a pint of ice cream and a bottle of wine. We spend the rest of the night dissecting every detail of the date, trying to figure out how I'd managed to accidentally take a guy on his coming out journey. We go through my phone, analyzing every text Ryan and I had exchanged. Jess points out that he used a lot of emojis, which apparently is a homo thing according to her. I'm not sure if that's a real thing or if we're just grasping at straws at this point. We also stalk his social media, looking for clues we might have missed. There's a picture of him at Pride, but it's from like 3 years ago, and the caption says he was there supporting his friends. We debate whether that was a sign or if we're reading too much into it. By the time Jess leaves, it's like 3 a.m., and I'm emotionally exhausted. I fall into bed, hoping that maybe I'll wake up and this will all have been some weird dream. But nope, I wake up the next morning to a text from Ryan. He apologizes again and says he hopes we can still be friends. I mean, seriously, who wants to be friends with the guy who used you as his orientation guinea pig? I don't reply. Instead, I delete the dating app and swear off dating for the foreseeable future. If this is what putting myself out there gets me, I think I'll stick to Netflix and my cat. Thank you very much. It's been a few weeks now, and I still don't know how to feel about the whole thing. Part of me wants to laugh it off, but another part of me is still kind of hurt and embarrassed. I guess at the end of the day, it's just another weird dating story to add to the pile. But let me tell you, it's gotta be a long time before I let my friends talk me into going on another date. Let me tell you about this crazy date I had last week. It still got me shook, to be honest. I met this girl, Fatima, on one of those dating apps. You know how it goes. Swipe right, match, chat for a bit, and then decide to meet up. She seemed cool enough online, and her pics were smoking hot, so I figured why not. We agreed to meet at this trendy little cocktail bar downtown. I got there a few minutes early, grabbed a seat at the bar, and waited. When Fatima walked in, I swear my jaw hit the floor. She looked even better in person. Long dark hair, curves in all the right places, and these big brown eyes that could melt your heart. I'm not gonna lie, I felt I had hit the jackpot. At first, everything seemed great. We ordered drinks, started chatting, and the conversation flowed easily. Fatima was funny, flirty, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. We talked about our jobs, our hobbies, our families, all the usual first date stuff. I was feeling pretty good about how things were going. But then things took a weird turn. We'd been talking for maybe an hour when Fatima started telling me about her shopping habits. Now, I'm all for treating yourself every now and then, but this girl was on another level. She was talking about dropping thousands of dollars on designer clothes and accessories like it was nothing. I mean, who needs a $5,000 handbag? But whatever, I figured maybe she just came from money or had a really well-paying job. That's when things got really messed up. Fatima leaned in close, like she was about to tell me some big secret, and boy, was it a doozy. She started bragging about how she'd conned guys out of money using her looks and charm. At first, I thought she was joking, but nope. She was dead serious. Fatima went into detail about how she'd meet guys online, charm them with her pics and personality, and then slowly start asking for money. She'd make up stories about needing help with rent or medical bills, and these poor suckers would fall for it hook, line, and sinker. Some of these dudes had sent her thousands of dollars without ever even meeting her in person. I was sitting there completely stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This gorgeous girl I'd been crushing on all night was actually a total con artist. And the worst part, she seemed proud of it. She was laughing as she told me about some of the more gullible guys she'd scammed. Just when I thought it couldn't get any weirder, Fatima dropped another bombshell. She looked me straight in the eye and asked if I wanted to be her sugar daddy. Yeah, you heard that right. His girl I'd known for all of 2 hours was asking me to basically fund her lavish lifestyle in exchange for, well, you can probably guess. I was completely thrown for a loop. I mean, do I look like I'm made of money? I'm just a regular dude with a regular job. And even if I did have that kind of cash to throw around, why would I want to give it to someone who just admitted to being a professional scammer? I tried to play it cool though. I didn't want to piss her off or anything. So I just kind of laughed it off and changed the subject. But inside, my mind was racing. How the hell had I ended up in this situation? And more importantly, how was I gonna get out of it? The rest of the date was super awkward. I couldn't stop thinking about everything Fatima had told me. Every time she smiled or laughed, I wondered if it was genuine or if she was just trying to manipulate me. I kept waiting for her to ask me for money or try to scam me somehow. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I made up some excuse about having an early morning and needing to head out. Fatima seemed disappointed, but I couldn't get out of there fast enough. As I walked to my car, I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting her to follow me or something. The whole drive home, I couldn't shake this feeling of unease. I just spent the evening with someone who admitted to being a con artist. What if she'd somehow gotten my personal info? What if she tried to scam me or steal my identity? As soon as I got home, I deleted my dating app account and blocked Fatima's number. I even considered changing my locks, but that felt a bit paranoid. Still, for days afterward, I kept replaying the date in my head, trying to figure out if I'd missed any red flags earlier on. The whole experience really messed with my head, you know. It made me question how well you can really know someone, especially someone you meet online. Fatima seemed so normal at first. If she hadn't straight up told me about her scams, I never would have guessed. It's been a week now, and I still feel kind of rattled by the whole thing. I've told a few of my friends about it, and they all think I'm exaggerating or making it up. But I swear, every word of this is true. It's like something out of a bad movie or one of those dating horror stories you read about online. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at online dating the same way again. Every time I see a profile that seems too good to be true, I can't help but wonder if it's another Fatima situation. And don't even get me started on first dates. I'm gonna be side-eyeing every girl who mentions expensive shopping habits from now on. Looking back, I guess I should be grateful that Fatima was upfront about her scams. At least I found out before I got emotionally invested or, God forbid, actually sent her money. But it still sucks, you know. It's made me way more cynical about dating in general. If you ever meet a girl named Fatima, who's way too into designer labels, run for the hills. And maybe think twice before swiping right on that profile that looks too perfect. You never know what kind of wild situation you might end up in. Alright, so picture this. You're at a concert, the music's thumping, and you lock eyes with this total hottie across the crowd. Little did I know, that moment was about to lead me into the dating disaster of the century. Buckle up, because this story's a wild ride from start to finish. So there I was bopping along to this band I'd been dying to see. The venue was packed, and I was squished between my mates, drink in hand, having the time of my life. That's when I spotted him. Tall, dark, and handsome, with this mischievous glint in his eye. We kept catching each other's glance throughout the show, and I swear, every time he smiled at me, my heart did a little flip. As the crowd started filing out after the encore, I figured that was that. But suddenly, there he was, right next to me. He introduced himself as Harry and struck up a conversation. We ended up chatting outside the venue for ages, totally hitting it off. He was charming, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in everything I had to say. Before we parted ways, he asked for my number and if I'd like to grab tea sometime. Yes, please. We texted back and forth over the next few days, and I found myself getting more and more excited about him. He was always sending these sweet little messages, asking about my day, and making me laugh with his witty comments. When he suggested meeting up that Saturday for our date, I was over the moon. The day of the date arrived, and I spent forever getting ready. I must have tried on a dozen outfits before settling on this cute floral dress I've been saving for a special occasion. Harry had told me to meet him at this swanky hotel in central London, but he was being all mysterious about the exact plans. I got to the hotel feeling a mix of nerves and excitement, and there was Harry looking absolutely gorgeous in a sharp suit. He greeted me with a kiss on the cheek that made my knees go weak. Then he led me inside, and I realized we were heading to the freaking Ritz for afternoon tea. I was stunned. Talk about fancy for a first date. We were seated at this beautiful table with fancy china and silver everything. The waiter brought out these towers of tiny sandwiches, scones, and most delicate little pastries you've ever seen. As we sipped our tea, Harry told me all about his life. Apparently, he was the CEO of some big tech company, heading off to amazing places for work all the time. I was honestly in awe. He seemed so successful and worldly. Throughout the date, Harry kept dropping hints about future plans. He asked if I've ever been to Paris, and when I said no, he was like, well, maybe I'll have to take you sometime. He also mentioned having access to exclusive clubs and events. I tried not to get ahead of myself, but I couldn't help imagining all the glamorous dates we might go on. We must have been there for hours, just talking and laughing. I was having such an amazing time that I completely lost track of time. The conversation flowed so easily, and I felt like I'd known Harry forever. He was attentive, asking me lots of questions about myself and seeming genuinely interested in my answers. Eventually, the waiter came over with the bill. I offered to split it, but Harry insisted on paying, saying he wanted to treat me. I caught a glimpse of the total as he looked it over. It was over £300. I felt a bit guilty about such an expensive first date, but Harry didn't seem bothered at all. Just as Harry was about to hand over his card, his phone started buzzing like crazy. He glanced at it and said he had to take an important business call. He excused himself, saying he'd be back in a few minutes. I sat there, happily munching on a leftover scone and reliving the best bits of our date in my head. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. I was starting to get a weird feeling in my stomach. I texted Harry asking if everything was okay, but got no response. After about 20 minutes, I decided to go look for him. I checked the lobby, the restrooms, even stepped outside the hotel, but there was no sign of Harry anywhere. That's when this horrible sinking feeling hit me. I rushed back to our table, my heart racing. Sure enough, Harry's jacket was gone from the back of his chair. I frantically flagged down our waiter and asked if he'd seen my date. He gave me this strange look and said the gentleman I was with had left the hotel about 15 minutes ago. I felt like I was going to throw up. This guy had totally ditched me with a £300 bill that I had no way of paying. I started calling and texting Harry nonstop, but it went straight to voicemail every time. I was on the verge of tears, completely humiliated and panicking about what to do. The manager came over, probably wondering why I was still sitting there long after the bill had been presented. When I shakily explained what happened, he actually looked kind of sympathetic. Apparently, I wasn't the first person to fall for this scam. He said they'd had a few similar incidents recently with guys bringing dates for expensive meals and then bailing on the bill. I was absolutely mortified. Here I was thinking I was on this romantic date with this successful, charming guy, and it turns out I've been totally played. Everything Harry told me was probably a lie. He probably wasn't even a CEO, just some creep who gets his kicks from scamming people. The manager was surprisingly understanding about the whole thing. He let me leave my ID and contact info, and said I could come back later to settle the bill. I was so grateful. I was seriously worried I was going to end up getting arrested or something. I left the hotel in a complete daze, barely holding it together. As soon as I got home, I broke down sobbing. I felt so stupid for falling for Harry's act. Looking back, there were probably red flags I'd missed, but in the moment, I'd been too caught up in the excitement of it all. I ended up having to borrow money from my parents to pay the hotel bill, which was beyond humiliating. I also found out that Harry had pulled this same stunt on at least 2 other girls recently. We've all filed police reports, but so far nothing's come of it. So yeah, that's how my dreamy date turned into a total nightmare. 1 minute I'm sipping fancy tea and dreaming about Paris. The next I'm left with a massive bill and a shattered ego. Talk about a reality check, huh? I guess the moral of the story is, actually, you know what? There is no moral. Sometimes people are just jerks, and you can't always see it coming. All I know is I won't be accepting any more dates to the Ritz anytime soon. You know that feeling when you think you've hit the jackpot, but it turns out you've been played like a fiddle? Yeah, that was me last month. Buckle up, because this story is a wild ride. It all started on a regular Tuesday night. I was swiping through Tinder, bored out of my mind, when I came across Sandra's profile. Stunning pics, witty bio, the whole package. We matched, started chatting, and man, the conversation just flowed. After a week of nonstop texting, we decided to meet up for drinks. I got to the bar early, nervous as hell. When Sandra walked in, my jaw nearly hit the floor. Long dark hair, killer smile, curves for days. She was even hotter in person. We got talking over cocktails, and it was like we'd known each other for years. She was funny, smart, and we had so much in common. By the end of the night, I was totally smitten. We made plans for a second date that weekend. I spent the next few days on cloud nine, replaying our first meeting in my head and imagining where this could go. When Saturday rolled around, I was pumped. I picked Sandra up for dinner, and damned, she looked amazing in this little black dress. We went somewhere nice. The food was great, but I barely tasted it. I was too busy hanging on Sandra's every word. She told me about her job as a graphic designer, her travels around Europe, her dreams of opening her own art gallery someday. I was captivated. After dinner, we decided to take a walk by the river. It was a beautiful night, clear sky, full moon, the whole romantic shebang. We strolled along the waterfront, talking and laughing. Sandra linked her arm through mine, and I felt like I was floating. We stopped at the scenic overlook to admire the view. The city lights were reflecting on the water, and in that moment, everything felt perfect. I turned to Sandra, and our eyes met. The tension between us was electric. I couldn't resist anymore. I leaned in for a kiss. As soon as our lips touched, something felt off. I can't explain it, but it just wasn't what I expected. Sandra's lips were weirdly firm, and there was a faint scratchy feeling that didn't make sense. I pulled back, confused. That's when I noticed Sandra's expression had changed. She, or rather he, looked nervous, almost guilty. My stomach dropped as I realized something was seriously wrong. Sandra took a deep breath and dropped the bombshell. There's something I need to tell you. I'm not who you think I am. My mind was reeling as Sandra, or whoever this person was, explained that his real name was Steve. He'd been using his sister's photos and pretending to be a woman. Said he was exploring his gender identity and wanted to see if he could pass as female. I just stood there in shock, trying to process what the hell was happening. Part of me thought it had to be some kind of sick joke. But as Steve kept talking, it became clear this was all too real. He said he'd never meant for things to go this far, that he planned to come clean before our first date, but then we hit it off so well, and he couldn't bring himself to ruin it. He actually had the nerve to ask if we could still make things work now that I knew the truth. Meanwhile, I'm having a full-on existential crisis. How did I not realize I was on a date with a guy? Was I really that oblivious? What did this mean about me? My head was spinning. I mumbled some excuse about needing air and bolted. Spent the whole Uber ride home in a daze, replaying every interaction with Sandra and cringing at how I'd been so thoroughly fooled. The next few days were a blur. I felt gross and violated, like my trust had been completely shattered. Deleted all my dating apps and swore off romance for a while. Couldn't stop obsessing over all the red flags I should have noticed. Like how Sandra always wore scarves or high-necked tops, probably to hide an Adam's apple, or how she never wanted to talk about her childhood or family. The way she always used the restroom at restaurants as soon as we arrived, probably to touch up her makeup. It all seemed so obvious in hindsight. Steve kept texting and calling, begging for another chance. Said he was sorry for lying, but that our connection was real. I blocked his number and all his social media. Wanted nothing to do with his creepy ass ever again. My friends tried to cheer me up, told me it wasn't my fault. But they didn't get it. They weren't the ones who made out with a cross-dressing dude thinking it was a hot chick. The whole thing was just so messed up. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. It wasn't just about Steve's gender. It was the complete violation of trust. The fact that every moment we'd shared, every conversation we had was built on a lie. It made me question everything. For a while, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without cringing. Kept replaying that kiss in my head, feeling phantom stubble burn on my face. Started having nightmares about showing up to dates and everyone turning out to be in drag. It took a few weeks, but eventually I started to come out of my funk. Figured I couldn't let one seriously messed up experience ruin dating for me forever. But man, did it change how I approached things. Started doing video chats before meeting up with anyone new. Got pretty paranoid about checking for subtle signs that someone might not be who they claim. Probably went overboard with the suspicion for a while, but can you blame me? Looking back now, I still can't believe how thoroughly I was fooled. Steve's deception was just so complete. He had the voice down pat, the mannerisms, everything. Must have put in some serious effort to pull off that level of catfishing. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd gone further before the truth came out. How far would Steve have taken the charade? The whole thing still gives me the creeps. I did briefly consider giving Steve a chance, believe it or not. We really did click personality-wise. But nah, the trust was irreparably broken. Plus, I'm just not into dudes, no matter how they're dressed up. So yeah, that's my wild catfish story. Certainly not how I expected my foray into online dating to go. These days I'm a lot more cautious, but I'm trying not to let it make me too cynical. Just taking things slow and being extra careful about who I trust. Still single for now, but hey, at least I've got one hell of a story to tell. And you can bet I'll be double checking for Adam's apples on all of my future dates. I'm sitting there, wine glass frozen halfway in my mouth, thinking, what the actual heck? Is this guy for real? But he just keeps going, talking about how he'd wake up to the smell of freshly baked bread every morning and come home to a gourmet three-course meal every night. I'm trying to figure out how to gracefully escape this nightmare when Darren suddenly perks up and says he has a surprise planned. Against my better judgment, thanks, wine, I let him talk me into going along with it. Big mistake. Huge. We leave the restaurant and get into his car. I'm thinking maybe he's taking me for dessert or to a cool bar or something. Nope. This dude pulls up to a freaking Home Depot. I'm not kidding. A hardware store. On a first date. At 9 p.m. on a Friday. I'm completely baffled as he leads me inside, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. He starts babbling about how we're going to pick out my dream kitchen. Yo, I was shook. Here's this guy I just met, acting like we're about to renovate our home together. We're walking through the store, and Darren's pointing out different appliances and fixtures, asking which ones I like best. He's getting more and more excited, talking about how he can't wait to see me in action in our future kitchen. I'm in a daze, wondering if I've somehow slipped into an alternate reality where this is normal first date behavior. We get to the sink section, and things reach peak weirdness. Darren gets this dreamy look in his eyes and starts describing in way too much detail how he imagines me standing at the sink for hours, dutifully washing dishes and prepping vegetables. He's going on about the perfect faucet height for my delicate hands, and how important good lighting is for chopping onions. I'm standing there surrounded by stainless steel sinks, wondering how the hell I ended up here and how I can escape without him going full psycho on me. Darren's practically salivating as he shows me different kitchen layouts, talking about how he'd arrange everything for maximum efficiency so I could fulfill my womanly duties more easily. He's not even looking at me anymore, just lost in his twisted kitchen fantasy. I'm nodding along, trying to act normal while I frantically text my roommate under my purse. SOS. Weird date. At Home Depot. May need rescue. She replies with a bunch of confused emojis, but I don't have time to explain. Darren's now moved on to comparing the merits of gas versus electric stoves, asking me which I prefer for my culinary adventures. I mumble something non-committal, my mind racing to find a way out of this situation. Finally, my phone buzzes. My roommate, bless her heart, has called with a fake emergency. I make a show answering, then turn to Darren with my best apologetic face. I tell him I'm so sorry, but my roommate's car broke down and I need to go pick her up. Darren looks disappointed, but says he understands. As he drives me back to my car, he keeps going on about how much fun he had and how he can't wait for our next kitchen shopping trip. Yeah, not gonna happen, buddy. The second I get home, I block Darren on everything. No way am I risking him showing up at my door with a KitchenAid mixer or something equally creepy. I collapse on the couch, still in disbelief about the whole thing. My roommate's dying laughing as I recount the story. Only you, she says, shaking her head. I'm caught between wanting to laugh it off and feeling seriously creeped out by how intense Darren got. So yeah, that's my bizarro world dating experience. 1 minute you're enjoying tapas, the next you're standing in Home Depot at 10 p.m. while some guy you just met plans out your entire domestic future. Dating is wild, yo. I think I'm gonna take a break for a while and focus on my career. At least my boss doesn't expect me to sleep in the break room for inspiration. I met this girl called Alicia. Fast forward a week, and we're meeting up for drinks at this trendy bar downtown. I'm nervous as hell, palms sweaty, the whole 9 yards. I get there early and grab a seat at the bar, scanning the room every time the door opens. Then she walks in, and my jaw drops. Now, don't get me wrong, Alicia is still gorgeous. But something's off. Her face looks different from her pictures, like really different. As she gets closer, I realize what it is. She's had a ton of work done. Her nose is perfectly sculpted, her cheekbones are sky high, and her lips look like they could float away at any moment. I try to play it cool as we start talking, but I can't stop staring. It's like I'm on a date with a completely different person than the one I was chatting with online. Alicia doesn't seem to notice my discomfort, though. She's bubbly and charming, telling me all about her job as a social media influencer and her plans to launch her own makeup line. As the night goes on, I start to relax a bit. Sure, the plastic surgery thing is weird, but Alicia's actually pretty cool. We have a lot in common, and she's making me laugh. I figure maybe I can look past the whole artificial beauty thing. But then she starts talking about her journey of self-improvement and how she's had over 20 procedures done. My mind is reeling. 20 procedures? That's like a whole new person. She's going on about her next planned surgery, and I'm just nodding along, trying not to freak out. By the end of the night, I know this isn't going to work out. It's not even about her looks anymore. It's the obsession with changing herself that's got me spooked. When she texts me the next day, I politely tell her I don't think we're compatible and wish her the best. I figure that's the end of it. Just another weird Tinder date story to tell my buddies over beers. But man, was I wrong. A few days later, my phone starts blowing up. Friends, coworkers, even my mom are messaging me, asking if I've seen the post. I have no clue what they're talking about until I open Facebook and see it, a massive detailed post from Alicia about our date. But this isn't just a bad date story. Oh no, this is a full-on character assassination. According to Alicia, I spent the whole night making fun of her appearance, calling her fake and plastic. She claims I tried to pressure her into coming back to my place, and when she refused, I followed her to her car and tried to force my way in. None of this happened, not even close. But the way she's written it, with all these little details that make it sound so real, people are buying it. The post is going viral with thousands of shares and comments. People I've never even met are calling me a creep, a predator, all sorts of nasty stuff. I try to defend myself, posting my own version of events, but it's like screaming into a void. Alicia's story has taken on a life of its own, and nothing I say seems to matter. My social media is flooded with hate messages and threats. Someone even posts my address and workplace online. Things start spiraling out of control real fast. My boss calls me in for a chat about the situation, suggesting I take some time off until things blow over. But things don't blow over. The story keeps spreading, getting picked up by local news sites and gossip blogs. I met this girl called Alicia. Fast forward a week, and we're meeting up for drinks at this trendy bar downtown. I'm nervous as hell, palms sweaty, the whole 9 yards. I get there early and grab a seat at the bar, scanning the room every time the door opens. Then she walks in, and my jaw drops. Now, don't get me wrong, Alicia is still gorgeous. But something's off. Her face looks different from her pictures, like really different. As she gets closer, I realize what it is. She's had a ton of work done. Her nose is perfectly sculpted, her cheekbones are sky high, and her lips look like they could float away at any moment. I try to play it cool as we start talking, but I can't stop staring. It's like I'm on a date with a completely different person than the one I was chatting with online. Alicia doesn't seem to notice my discomfort, though. She's bubbly and charming, telling me all about her job as a social media influencer and her plans to launch her own makeup line. As the night goes on, I start to relax a bit. Sure, the plastic surgery thing is weird, but Alicia's actually pretty cool. We have a lot in common, and she's making me laugh. I figure maybe I can look past the whole artificial beauty thing. But then she starts talking about her journey of self-improvement and how she's had over 20 procedures done. My mind is reeling. 20 procedures? That's like a whole new person. She's going on about her next planned surgery, and I'm just nodding along, trying not to freak out. By the end of the night, I know this isn't going to work out. It's not even about her looks anymore. It's the obsession with changing herself that's got me spooked. When she texts me the next day, I politely tell her I don't think we're compatible and wish her the best. I figure that's the end of it. Just another weird Tinder date story to tell my buddies over beers. But man, was I wrong. A few days later, my phone starts blowing up. Friends, coworkers, even my mom are messaging me, asking if I've seen the post. I have no clue what they're talking about until I open Facebook and see it, a massive detailed post from Alicia about our date. But this isn't just a bad date story. Oh no, this is a full-on character assassination. According to Alicia, I spent the whole night making fun of her appearance, calling her fake and plastic. She claims I tried to pressure her into coming back to my place, and when she refused, I followed her to her car and tried to force my way in. None of this happened, not even close. but the way she's written it, with all these little details that make it sound so real, people are buying it. The post is going viral with thousands of shares and comments. People I've never even met are calling me a creep, a predator, all sorts of nasty stuff. I try to defend myself, posting my own version of events, but it's like screaming into a void. Alicia's story has taken on a life of its own, and nothing I say seems to matter. My social media is flooded with hate messages and threats. Someone even posts my address and workplace online. Things start spiraling out of control real fast. My boss calls me in for a chat about the situation, suggesting I take some time off until things blow over. But things don't blow over. The story keeps spreading, getting picked up by local news sites and gossip blogs. I'm starting to feel like I'm losing my mind. I can't sleep, can't eat, can't focus on anything. Every time my phone buzzes, I jump, wondering if it's another angry message or threat. My friends are supportive, but I can tell some of them are wondering if there's any truth to Alicia's story. After a week of this hell, I know I have to do something. I scrape together every penny I have and hire a lawyer. We file a defamation lawsuit against Alicia, hoping that'll at least get her to take down the post. But legal stuff moves at a snail's pace, and in the meantime, my life is falling apart. I lose my job. My landlord asks me to move out because he's getting threats. I end up crashing on my buddy's couch, barely leaving the house except for meetings with my lawyer. Months go by, and finally, we get our day in court. My lawyer does an amazing job poking holes in Alicia's story and presenting evidence that she's done this kind of thing before to other guys she's dated. Turns out she's got a history of making up wild stories for attention on social media. The judge rules in my favor, ordering Alicia to take down the post, pay me damages, and make a public apology. It's a huge relief, but the damage is already done. Even with the truth out there, my reputation is in tatters. I end up having to move to a new city and basically start my life over from scratch. It's been a year now, and I'm still dealing with the fallout. Every time I apply for a job or go on a date, I'm terrified they're going to Google me and find all that old drama. Looking back, it's insane how quickly everything spiraled out of control. All because of one bad date with a girl who turned out to be seriously unhinged. I'm slowly putting my life back together, but I don't think I'll ever be the same. Every notification on my phone still gives me a mini heart attack. From a normal date to a full-on legal battle and having to start my life over. All because I wasn't into a girl's plastic surgery. Sometimes I still can't believe it actually happened to me. But here we are. I guess you never really know what you're getting into when you swipe right. I was swiping left and right like it's my job. Suddenly, this guy's profile catches my eye. Adam, 28, athletic build, great smile. His bio mentions loving sports and adventure. I'm thinking, hey, this could be fun. Little did I know I was about to step into the craziest, most messed up date of my life. We matched, and Adam wasted no time sliding into my DMs. He was charming and cracking jokes that actually made me laugh out loud. We chatted for a few days and everything seemed cool. Then he suggested we meet up for a sporty first date. Let's play some basketball, he said. I figured why not? I'm not exactly LeBron James, but I can hold my own on the court. So the big day arrives. I'm feeling pretty good, you know. I throw on some cute athletic wear, tie my hair back, and head to the park we agree on. As I'm walking up, I see Adam standing there with a basketball, but he's not alone. There are like 5 other guys with him, all looking like they just stepped out of a gym advertisement. I'm thinking, okay, this is weird, but maybe they're just leaving. Nope. Adam waves me over with this big grin and introduces me to his buddies. Apparently, they're all joining us for this date. Red flag number 1, right? But I'm trying to be cool about it, so I just smile and go along with it. We start playing, and at first it's not too bad. I'm holding my own, even managed to sink a couple of baskets. But then things start getting intense. These guys are playing like their lives depend on it. They're shoving, elbowing, trash talking, the works. I'm getting knocked around like a pinball at Adam. He's right in the thick of it, egging his friends on. I try to laugh it off, make some jokes about how I'm not cut out for the NBA. But nobody's laughing. Instead, they're getting more aggressive. One of Adam's friends, this tall, beefy dude with a buzz cut, starts targeting me specifically. He's always on me, not letting me get any clear shots, bumping into me accidentally every chance he gets. At one point, I manage to get the ball and make a break for the hoop. I'm feeling pretty good, thinking I might actually score a decent point. But then, out of nowhere, buzzcut guy comes charging at me like a freight train. He slams into me full force, and I go flying. I hit the ground hard, skidding across the concrete. My knees and elbows are burning, and I can feel the sting of broken skin. For a second, I'm just lying there trying to catch my breath and figure out what the hell just happened. Now, you think this is where everyone would stop, right? Check I'm okay, maybe offer a hand up. Nope. Instead, I hear Adam's voice, loud and angry. He's yelling at me, asking why I went down so easily. Like, excuse me? I just got bulldozed by your steroid pump, buddy, and you're mad at me. I look up, and all these guys are standing around me looking annoyed. Not a single one of them offers to help me up. Adam's still going on about how I'm ruining the game and need to toughen up. That's when I realize this isn't just a bad date. It's a nightmare. I scramble to my feet, ignoring the pain in my knees and the blood I can feel trickling down my leg. Without saying a word, I grab my stuff and start walking away. I can hear them behind me laughing and making some comments about how I can't handle a real game. The whole walk home, I'm a mess of emotions. I'm angry, embarrassed, confused, you name it. I keep replaying everything in my head, wondering how a simple basketball date turned into this disaster. By the time I get home, my knees are throbbing, and I've got bruises forming all over. I hop in the shower, wincing as the water hits my scrapes and cuts. As I'm patching myself up afterward, I hear my phone ping. It's a text from Adam, and get this, he says he had an amazing time and wants to know when we can do it again. Is this guy for real? I'm staring at my phone in disbelief when another message comes through. This one's worse. He's saying how impressed his friends were with my toughness and how they can't wait to play again. Apparently, this whole thing was some kind of twisted test, and in their warped minds, I passed. That's it, I've had enough. Without even bothering to reply, I block Adam's number and unmatch him on the app. I'm done. No way am I ever interacting with this psycho or his friends again. The next few days are rough. I'm sore all over, and the bruises are spectacular, not in a good way. I've got a huge purple one on my hip, and my knees look like I've been crawling through gravel. Every time I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror, I'm reminded of that disaster of a date. My best friend comes over when I tell her what happened. She's ready to hunt Adam down and get him a piece of her mind. I appreciate the support, but honestly, I just want to forget the whole thing ever happened. As the week goes on, I start feeling a bit better physically, but mentally, I'm still pretty shaken. I keep thinking about how quickly things escalated and how powerless I felt in that situation. It's made me super worried about dating in general. I've taken a break from the dating apps for now. The thought of going on another first date makes my stomach churn. I know not all guys are like Adam, but this experience has definitely left its mark. So here I am a week later, still trying to process this whole crazy experience. My bruises are starting to fade, but the memory of that date is still pretty fresh. I've been spending a lot of time with my friends, trying to shake off the negative vibes from that day. I don't know when I'll be ready to jump back into the dating scene. For now, I'm perfectly happy hanging out with my cat and binge watching my favorite shows. And if I ever do go on a sports date again, you can bet I'll be bringing my own team for backup. So there I was scrolling through a dating app these kids use, like the hopeless romantic I am, when I came across this guy, James. Cute pics, decent bio, nothing too out there. We matched, started chatting, and things seemed pretty normal. He was funny, we had some stuff in common, and after a few days of back and forth, he asked me out to dinner. I figured why not. It's been ages since I've been on a proper date, and I was getting tired of Netflix asking if I was still watching. We agreed to meet at this cool new cafe downtown on Friday night. I spent way too long getting ready, trying on like every outfit I own before settling on this cute little black dress. I even splurged on getting my hair done, just in case this turned out to be something special. I'd get to the restaurant a few minutes early, text James to let him know I'm there, and grab a seat at the bar. I order a glass of wine to calm my nerves and start people watching while I wait. 15 minutes go by, then 30, and I'm starting to feel like a total idiot sitting there alone. Just as I'm about to call it quits, I get a text from James. He's super apologetic, saying his car broke down and he's stuck on the side of the road. He asks if I'd mind meeting him at the KFC near where he's stranded instead. Now, I know what you're thinking, red flag city, right? But I felt bad for the guy, and I was already all dressed up with nowhere to go. So against my better judgment, I agreed. I pull up to this sad-looking KFC, and it's even more depressing inside. Sticky floors, flickering lights, the works. I spot James in a booth near the back and head over. First thing I notice is he looked way different from his profile pics, like at least 10 years older and definitely heavier. But I try to keep an open mind. Maybe his pics were just old or something. Before I can even sit down, he starts rambling about his car troubles. He's talking a mile a minute, barely even looking at me, and his hands are shaking. I'm thinking maybe he's just nervous, but something feels off. We order some food, and while we're waiting, he keeps glancing around like he's expecting someone to jump out at him. The food arrives, and we eat in awkward silence. I'm trying to make small talk, but James seems distracted. He keeps reaching into his pocket and then pulling his hand out like he's changed his mind about something. I'm starting to get seriously weirded out, and I'm thinking about making up an excuse to leave. That's when things go from weird to absolutely bonkers. James suddenly slides out of the booth and gets down on one knee. I'm sitting there, piece of chicken halfway in my mouth, thinking this has got to be some kind of joke. But nope, he pulls out this tiny box and opens it to reveal the fakest looking diamond ring I've ever seen. And then he starts this insane speech about how he knew from the moment he saw my profile that I was his soulmate. How he's been waiting his whole life for someone like me. How we're destined to be together and he wants to start a family right away. He's getting more and more worked up, practically shouting at this point. People are starting to stare, and I'm just frozen in shock. I manage to stammer out something about needing to use the bathroom and bolt for the door. I can hear James calling after me, but I don't look back. I get to my car and my hands are shaking so bad I can barely get the key in the ignition. As I'm pulling out of the parking lot, I see James running after my car, still holding that ridiculous ring. I drove around aimlessly for like an hour after that, just trying to calm down. When I finally got home, I had about 1 million missed calls and texts from James. Some were angry, accusing me of leading him on. Others were weirdly calm, like nothing had happened, asking when we could meet up again. I blocked his number immediately and deleted my Tinder account for good measure. But I still felt paranoid for days afterward, like he might show up at my house or something. I kept replaying the whole night in my head, trying to figure out if I missed some obvious red flags early on. A few days later, I was still feeling jumpy, so I decided to do some digging. I reverse image searched his profile pics and found out they were actually of some minor celebrity from Australia. Then I searched his phone number and found a bunch of posts on Reddit and Facebook from other girls who had similar experiences with this guy. Turns out James, if that was even his real name, had been pulling the stunt all over town. He'd match with girls on dating apps, set up a meet at a nice restaurant, then claim car trouble and redirect them to fast food places. Then he'd do the whole proposal thing, probably hoping the girl would be so flustered she'd say yes. I guess once they were engaged, he'd try to scam money out of them or something. I reported his profile to Tinder and filed a report with the police, but they said there wasn't much they could do since he hadn't actually committed a crime. I mean, being a creepy weirdo isn't illegal, unfortunately. It's been a few weeks now, and I'm still processing the whole thing. Like, who does that? Who goes to all that trouble just to freak people out? And how many girls fell for it before someone caught on? I've told the story to a few friends, and they all think it's hilarious now that we know I wasn't in any real danger. But honestly, it was pretty terrifying in the moment. You never know what someone's capable of, Anyway, I'm definitely taking a break from dating for a while after this. Maybe I'll get a cat or something instead. At least cats don't propose to you in fast food joints after knowing you for less than an hour.